Okay, in this next section we're going to look at attributed blocks. Okay, what's an attribute? An attribute is informational text associated with the block. What does this actually mean? Well, when you create your block, it's really just a series of lines, arcs, circles, whatever makes up the particular block. But there's absolutely no sort of identifying information about it at all. Now, why couldn't we just attach text to it? Well, at a later stage we'll see that if you attach the information as an attribute, you can actually extract this information and use it maybe in a parts list or something else. So we'll demonstrate that at the end of this particular section, extracting the information. So it's important that when you're creating a block that you think about the information you want to get from it. So it's not just a case of it's a drawing that you place on the screen, which is an important bit, if you like, as well. But it's also, what do you want to use it for? What information you want to get from it? Like I say, in a drawing, it's just a picture, but the more attribute information you attach to it, the more useful information you can use at the end of the day, for your parts lists, which is a chore that kind of has to be performed. You have to, at the end of the day, create parts lists and so on for your drawings. And rather than having to go around and count and document each one, you'll see that using attributes, we can, with various functions in AutoCAD, we can actually extract all this information. So it's a case of the old adage, the more you put in, the more you get out. So the more information you attach to an attribute, the more information you can use. So I've opened up the two office blocks drawing here. You can see it here in front of me. First thing I'm going to do is actually, and again, recommend it all the time, is do a save as. So Control Shift and S. So do a save as, and I'm going to save it back to, I got a load of store drawing. And if you look at page 20 on section 2, we're asked to save this one as office furniture. So I'll save it as office furniture at this stage. I know it doesn't say it till page 20, but you might as well kind of do it now. That means then you've got that 2-office blocks drawing to fall back, and should you make a mistake, you can start again. So I'd suggest you always do that. Always look to the end of the section and see what you're going to save it, or even temporarily just name it something until you get to that bit in the book. Okay, so we've got our three basic enough drawings, but we're going to create attribute blocks from these. You can see at this stage they're just in their sort of basic form, lines and arcs. Okay, so they're just in their basic form, so no blocks have been created as yet. It's like we've just drawn these items on the screen. So we're going to look at creating an attribute, and I'll zoom into this first one here. This is the first one we're looking at. This is the table. So I'll zoom into this one. Now, there's a little block panel in your home tab, and like you might kind of think, if you think logically about it in this one, because they're blocks, because it's created, that the attributes are associated with the block, so you'll find all the little icons and that in here. Nice little keyboard shortcuts as well. ATT is the keyboard shortcut for attribute. So we're going to define an attribute, so I'll pick on this little icon, and we get the attribute definition dialog box up. Now as we go through this logically. So as we go through it, we'll look at the mode section first, then attribute, and then I'll go on to text, and then the insertion point. So in here, the only ones that we're going to concern ourselves with are invisible, constant, and verify. Okay, and I'm going to just uncheck lock position, because I want to be able to move it at any stage. And you'll see as I go through it why I'd maybe want to be able to do that. So we're really only going to concern ourselves with invisible, constant, and verify. And if you look at these words, an attribute, what's an attribute? It's a piece of text information on it. So not all, if we look at the first word, invisible, not all attributes you maybe want to be visible. Maybe you don't want any of them visible. Maybe you're going to make them all invisible. But certainly one you wouldn't want visible on your drawing is the price. Because it's in a drawing, you're only going to probably estimate the price at this stage. You might have to ring around for a few quotes. So if you go and give your drawing to some company that you're looking for quotes for a drawing, and you've given away the price you're willing to pay for it, guess what you're going to get charged? Yeah, you've guessed it. the price you're willing to pay, and probably some on top of that. So you might want to kind of make that invisible if you print off a drawing for somebody, that it doesn't appear the price you're willing to pay for the component. So that's one of the things you might want to make invisible. So if you're asked for an attribute and to make it visible or invisible, if you make it visible, well, you do nothing, just leave that box unchecked. But if you want to make it invisible, you'll check on that box. Okay, so if you're asked for visible, there is no visible button, so don't go looking for one. It just means you've left the invisible button unchecked. There's constant as well. So what's the next one along? Constant. Again, you may be asked, and I'm kind of thinking forward to tests and so on at this stage, that you've got constant and a variable attribute. Now, if you're asked for a variable attribute, it just means one that isn't constant. Okay, and we'll see what that one does in a little second as well. So we've got variable and constant attributes. So when you're talking about a variable attribute, leave this one unchecked. If it's a constant attribute, if it stays the same. For instance, the table, the first one we're going to do, it's always going to be a table, so we'll never want to change that attribute. Okay, so a table is always a table. It's never going to magically turn into a chair, even though you might sit on it. So if you want a variable attribute, you leave that unchecked. Why might you need a variable attribute? Well, what's the table made of? Is it glass? Is it teak, oak? What's the material it's made of? So you might want to vary that attribute. Okay. And then there's the verify option. This prompts you to verify that the attribute value is correct when you insert the block. Okay, so there's a little sort of a warning just to maybe again not use all that much, more or less as you get into the swing of it. The verify bit you'll kind of take for granted, to be honest, so you might end up leaving that one off. But at the start you might want to click on the verify button just to remind yourself to check the attribute value. Okay, but again, I actually think the book doesn't even actually check that one, but it's one you might kind of think about checking, just to give yourself a little reminder. We'll not worry about the preset, the lock position and the multiple lines. We can do multiple lines as well, but we'll not be kind of looking at those just on this section just yet. Okay, so if I look at the first attribute I'm asked to put in, it's the table attribute. So like I said, this one's going to be a constant attribute. So if I click on constant, look across at the attribute, a little prompt grays out, so I can't select that. So that becomes unselectable because it's going to be always what it's going to be, a table. So we come along then to the attribute section. Sorry, this is going to be visible as well, so it's visible and constant. So the tag, what's the tag? We're going to put in the word item here. Tag is just a piece, think of it as just a piece of text that you can place on the screen and manipulate it around so that you get your attribute in the right position. If we didn't have a tag and we just created the attribute, we'd have nothing to pick on to position it. Okay, and you'll see what I'm kind of talking about when we get into it. So item is the word they're using here for the tag. Way back, they used to just call them, I know in the tests way back before 2002 and that, they used to tag, the tags were called T1, T2, T3 and there's no reason why that works just as well. It's just a piece of text, but you might as well make it something that makes some kind of sense. So item being, what is it? Is it a table, desk, chair? So we've placed the tag item here, and the default value for this tag is going to be table, and that's not going to change, which is why we've got our prompt grayed out. Then the actual, get into the text settings. So we're going to have center text, text style is furniture, and then the height of our text is going to be 100, and we're going to specify on screen where the position of that is. Okay, so if I kind of click OK on that, that's my attribute value filled in. I'll just acquire that point and acquire that point. I'll position it in the center just for now. So there it is, it's positioned in the center. So that's my first attribute created. So let's create another attribute. So if I hit return, the attribute definition dialog box pops up again. And I get my notes out. The next one is entering in the type of the table. So this may be variable, so we'll uncheck that constant box and the prompt comes back on. It's no longer grayed out. It's not invisible, it's visible. So we're going to call this type. And the prompt, what do we put in the prompt? Well, you should put in a question that gives you the answer at the default value. So in this case it's enter type of table. And with that question you should be thinking of people that possibly may be using this, not just yourself, somebody else may be using this block. So you should be kind of thinking about that. And in that kind of respect, if I put in teak and you look at the question enter type of table, you know, what is it? Teak table, what is it? A round table, a square table, rectangular table. You know, it's maybe not a clear question at the prompt enter type of table. Maybe enter material if you like, or something like that. You could kind of look at that prompt again and maybe put in a clearer question there. Remember that you may not always be the only person using these blocks, so it should be obvious when that question pops up on the screen for your users that, you know, what are you actually looking for here? Well, I'm looking for the material. What material is this table used? Is this table made of? So teak on this occasion. So I'll kind of leave it for now. It's fine for the demonstration purposes. But again, like I say, you should be thinking of the question and it should lead you to the answer at default. Remember, tag, again, type is just a piece of text so we can manipulate it. Nothing else. So I come along and there's a nice little align below previous attribute definition button here, which means we don't even have to do anything else than place it, and click OK on that, and it aligns it below that. My last option then, or my last attribute then to create is this invisible attribute, the price. We spoke about that as well. Again, hit return. This time it is invisible and it's variable as well because the price may change as we ring around a few different quotes. We'll maybe get it cheaper. So we've got price and enter price of table, and we're looking for, we put in €100. The euro symbol is Control Alt and the 4 key, just in case you're wondering. So Control Alt and 4. Okay, again we've got an align below previous attribute definition, but to be honest with you, this one actually doesn't really matter where it goes, as long as it's kind of close to the actual block. It's not going to be seen, so really it doesn't matter where it goes. But you might as well put it below the previous definition, and I'll click OK on that. Now you'll notice the text is slightly kind of off center on that, and if I can just draw a construction line to show you, it's kind of off center. This isn't going to be seen on our block, so even at this stage I'd be kind of thinking of moving that up just somewhat, maybe up a couple of mil there. Let's turn off the one. Maybe up 40 mil just to see, just to position those two bits of text. Remember, those two bits are the only two bits that are going to be actually seen. The price is invisible, so it doesn't really matter. So you see what I'm kind of doing? I'm trying to even this out and balance it out, because again, I kind of see so many people using attributes and they're sloppy and all over the place and the wrong justification, and one's over here and the other's down here and the other's over here. It just looks very poor. Imagine you have to pay in thousands for this system, and you have to pay in thousands for the system, and then you go and produce sloppy work. It's not right. So just keep an eye on the neatness at this stage. So that's your attributes created at this stage. Okay, if I zoom out, we've got our attributes. Okay.